Hi everyone, hello, Cheryl Arkle here. What are you reading? You know how this works. You tell me what you're reading, I'll tell you what we're reading, and we'll all talk about reading. Welcome everyone, Cheryl Arkle, what are you reading? So it's Thursday, 2:00. We love this session. We get to talk to all of you at home, so you've got to tell me what you're reading. It's a big week here in Sydney. We've got the Sydney Writers' Festival on. I think that launched last night. What can I tell you? Oh, I went to see Anne Patchett. Do we have a photo of that we can put up, Dex? We might have a photo of Anne Patchett that we can put up. We did put it on the either my Instagram or the Better Reading Instagram. Tell me if you've gone to anything at the Sydney Writers' Festival or you're going. Tell me if you're going to see Anne Patchett. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what you're reading. Okay, I'm going to start because I'm not myself, you see. I'm going to start with this beautiful, beautiful book by Ariane Beeston. She's written this wonderful book. It's our book of the week, actually. Yes, and it matches my top. I spoke to Ariane very recently. We recorded a podcast, and she talked very frankly about having. She had some kind of it's perinatal depression. That's what she had. I was going to say she had perinatal and postnatal, I think. Anyway, it's a really candid memoir. It's about her journey of how she got through being down in the dumps and worse, if you like, and how she got herself up. It's candid, it's funny, and it really is a memoir of motherhood. And we all know that, it's very often not easy. And she also takes it quite seriously as well and gives people tips and helps people. Well, I guess it's a good book for navigating where to go and what to do. So it's called Because I'm Not Myself. Because I'm Not Myself, you see. And this is the book of the week, and we've got the podcast that's probably out. Is it out, Dex? Next week. Okay. All right. So that's what's happening. And that's Ariane Beeston, a really lovely, beautifully spoken young person. And the book itself, even if it sounds quite dark, is also very, very uplifting and definitely worth a read. Okay. Tell me what you're reading at home. I want to talk about Victoria Perman because a lot of you I know joined me last night in our conversation with Victoria. The book is called The Radio Hour. And I think Victoria said last night it was her 20th book. I mean, quite extraordinary. And she's only been writing for over 10 years. So it's charming, it's funny, and it's a look at women in radio. And Victoria herself worked for the ABC. And so she really had an insight to, women's roles in the media. We love Victoria, and I know you do too. And thank you for all those that joined us last night because it was a really fun event. I enjoyed it a lot. Oh, Victoria Perman. Okay, what are you guys reading at home? Tell me what you're reading. Let's see. Okay, Christine says, hi, Carolyn, and who joined us last night as well. Over the last week, I caught up with Chris Hammer. Novels I hadn't read, Treasure and Dirt, The Seven, both great reads, and also Pheasant's Nest by Louise Milligan. Now, I can't believe you hadn't read Chris Hammer yet because everyone is reading Chris Hammer. He's actually at the Sydney Writers' Festival this week. If you're going, have a look at one. I think he's got a session, at least one session anyway. And he is beloved by everybody. I don't have a book here, so I can't do a segue, but we all love Chris Hammer. Okay, Tracy says, I'm reading Powerless by Elsie Silver, which is fantastic. And we've got Sally who says, hi, Yvonne. Hi, Yvonne. Just about to start Maya's Dance by Helen Signy, I think that's pronounced. Sandra says, hi. Sandra is reading books by authors going to Rachel John's book retreat at the Gold Coast next month. Looking forward to catching up with Jane, author Jane Tara. Oh, so Jane's going up there as well. How fantastic. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. And we love Rachel Johns as well. Jane says, hi, I've just finished Fairvale Ladies Club by Sophie Green. Great read. Love her books. Fantastic. Thanks, Jane. Ella's currently reading Until August by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Well, there we go. Is that the new one? Is that Ilas? Is that the new Gabriel Garcia Marquez? Because I know his children have published one of his books. I haven't picked it up yet. He's got to be one of my favourite writers. My favourite book, I think, of his is Love in the Time of Cholera. Tell me if you're a Marquez fan, what your favourite book is as well. Okay, Marie is currently reading The Angry Women's Choir and enjoying it. Sue says hi, and she's reading The School Run by Ali Lowe, a great, easy read. We love Ali. She's a great friend. Oh, Tony Birch is what Bernadette's reading. Christine, I just finished Body of Lies by Sarah Bailey. Kalani by Nikki Mottram, and I am currently reading Robbie Neal's With the Winter Comes Darkness. I have the privilege of meeting Robbie at the end of May to discuss her book. How fantastic. Hey, talk to me about meeting authors, because I know that you guys often correspond with authors through Facebook and in Facebook comments and maybe on Instagram and, you know, maybe on TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I know plenty of people do. So I just want to know if that's something that is important to you, you know, making that connection. Because I feel with social media that, you know, that has just blown up so much. And is it valuable to be able to talk to an author? I think it is, but let me know what you think. We're going to launch something here. Shall I say we're going to launch something? I don't know. I might get into trouble from Dex and Natalie, but I am going to say it. We've got a really special treat coming up. We're launching what we're calling a new promotion. Not next week, but probably the week after. But I'm not going to give away too much. What I am going to say is I'm going to be at Words on the Waves. Now, that's up at Umina. So if you're in New South Wales and you want to go to the Central Coast, Umina. And on Saturday, the 1st of June at 1 p.m, Nat's What Do I Reckon and I are going to be on stage recording a Better Reading podcast to the live audience. We're going to be talking about food. We're going to be talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about cooking. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things. So if you're coming to the festival, come to our session. And if you think about coming, I think that there's still tickets. So yeah, it's such a beautiful destination. I did it last year, and I think I missed out last year, but the year before I did it, and really beautiful destination. You've got the ocean right there, really nice venues. So yeah, so great fun. Okay, Barbara Summer. I talked to Barbara Sumner, and this is called The Gallow Bird. She was a wonderful conversationalist, and this is a story of enduring love, friendship, wild women who refuse the rules of their time. And this is really so beautifully told historical fiction, which I know that we all love. And it's Barbara Sumner, and that book's out now, and so is the podcast. Okay, tell me about meeting authors, what you like about meeting an author. I'd really like to know that. Tell me at home what you like. Oh, you want? Oh, yeah. Well, let me just give. Oh, there you go. That's me, and that's Anne Patchett. Oh, I love that. So for those of you not on my Instagram, I'm going to tell you the story. So I love her. So I'm trying to think of Commonwealth was one of my favorites of hers. And Bel Canto. So I wrote a little story after meeting her, just a couple of lines. And for those of you that follow me on my personal Instagram, you would have seen it. But for those that don't, I'm going to tell you. So a few years back, my sister Margaret and I took a train trip. We took a train. We were in, I go to San Francisco every year, and she came to visit. And we flew to Denver, and we took a train trip from Denver to San Francisco. And it was, I don't know, 24 hours or whatever, but it was winter, and it was the most wonderful snowstorm. However, we got stuck. At some point, the train couldn't move forward and the train couldn't move back because of the amount of snow that had fallen. So they made an announcement and said, we've just got to sit here and wait. And it turned out to be like something like 10 or 12 hours. So Margaret had read Bel Canto. That was something that she was reading on the trip by Anne Patchett, and then she gave it to me. So while we were stationary in the snow and nothing to do really, and nothing to eat or drink either because they ran out of food, I got into the bed because we had this little cabin, and I read Bel Canto. Now, if you know Bel Canto, you know how appropriate it is, because it is really about a group of people being taken hostage. So anyway, it was magnificent, and I've got a really fond memory of it. Anyway, then years later, I recorded a podcast with Anne Patchett, and I told her the story. And then the other night, Tuesday night, I met her in person for the very first time. Can we put that photo back up, Dex? Because I'm really, really super happy with it. Oh, there you go. Oh, I'm wearing the same top as I am today. Okay, well, there you go. That's a little bit of information for everybody. They're laughing. Okay, this is what we're reading here too, Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. Now, you will know that Kevin is the author of Crazy Rich Asians, hugely successful book, hugely successful film. It's hilarious. It's a sophisticated tale of love, murder, money, and the lies we tell about them. And isn't that just the most wonderful cover? So that's what we're reading as well. What else are you reading? Okay, let me go through some of these. Sally, I've just listened to last night's chat with Victoria and loved it. Isn't she wonderful? She's so popular, and she's such a great storyteller. Yvonne says it's Maya's Dance that she's reading. Is that right? Carolyn, I read some of Chris Hammer, but had missed those two. Read and enjoys writing. Thank you for clearing that up. Julie, hello. Julie is reading The Other Bridget by Rachel Johns and loving it. Now, I think Rachel Johns is also going to be at Words on the Waves next weekend. I don't know what time her session is, but she's certainly going to be there. So look it up, because she would have come over to Words on the Waves all the way from Western Australia. And if you want to see her, it's a good place to see her. Okay, Meryl says, hi, I'm reading Servo by David Goodwin. Cheryl, great name. I currently just about to finish reading Mrs. Winterbottom Takes a Gap Year and enjoying this. I'm not sure which book on my increasing TBR pile that she's going to read. As Sandra is reading, oh, yes. So Eilish is saying that, yes, that's Gabriel Garcia Marquez's latest novel. Apparently a book he didn't want published, but his children have published it. So very curious. Sandra is reading Juno. Juno Loves Legs by Carl Geary. Christine is reading Last Night. Oh, Christine's saying last night was great listening to you and Victoria. It was really great fun. Do you know, I think I said this last night, so I'm repeating myself to those that were watching. But you know, when you walk in the door after you've come home from a big day at work, and I put my keys down, I thought, oh, what am I doing tonight? I just thought, what is it that I'm doing tonight? And then I'm chatting with Victoria Perman, and I got so excited. So yes, it is via Zoom, but it's just so lovely to be able to sit there and talk to an author for half an hour. And I'm sure you guys just love sitting there and watching us talk and making wonderful comments and enjoying it. So anyway, it's such a good program, and isn't technology and social media fantastic? Okay, what else have we got? Lisa says, hi, Cheryl, reading Prima Facie by Susie Miller. Looking forward to seeing her at the Brisbane Writers Festival. There's so many festivals on at the moment, because only a week or so ago, I was at the Melbourne Writers Festival. Sydney's on at the moment. Words on the Waves. Brisbane's coming up. Byron Bay's coming up, I think. I think that's in August as well. So there's lots happening. We are so lucky. Okay, Joy says, hi, I finished The Good Parents by Joan London. I found it at one of our little street libraries while I was walking the greyhounds in, and great read. I'd missed it when it came out. Let's talk about those little libraries, because there's one in my park as well, and I often drop books off there, and I see books there. I'm not going to bring any books home because I've got enough, but I often see books in that library. Oh, I must read that. And I see people go up to it, as you would, Joy, I guess. I see people go up, open it, have a browse, take one book. I mean, it's such a wonderful honesty system, isn't it, as well? And people just take what they want to read, and they seem to bring them back, or seem to bring books that they don't want to read or they've already read. So really love that idea. It's so wonderful. Carol says, hi, Cheryl. I'm reading Downstream by Anita Johansson. It's about Lismore residents in the 2022 flood. Highly recommend it. Do you know, Jane, when Jane's mother, well, Jane is from up there, but I think her mother's still there. And when I went up to Lismore I think that was last year, a few months back for a library talk, it was great fun actually. But Jane's mum kindly took us around the area and showed us the flood. Well, she showed me Lismore, but particularly pointed out the flood affected areas. And I was so shocked at how high the water went. Like there were buildings that Jane's mum said were absolutely just covered in water. And these were 2 or 3 story buildings. So anyway, it was terrible. And I know that there's still, the community there is still trying to house some homeless people, well, people that lost their houses and became homeless through the flood. So there's still a lot of work going on around that. So thanks for bringing that up, Carol. Yvonne, have loved meeting authors at our local library, Carly Lane, Anika Johansson. Only last week you met them, Yvonne. Well, that's wonderful. It is a really nice thing to do, isn't it? I feel as though it's the same like with my job when I'm talking to people on a podcast. I really enjoy it and I always learn something or I always find out something new. It's extraordinary. And I've spoken to hundreds of authors, but every single time I learn something new. I just really enjoy it. And I've got to say, most authors are just so interesting and so generous with their time as well. Michael says, regards from cold Melbourne. Michael, I've got some very bad news for you. The weather is stunning in Sydney at the moment. Sorry about that. Although when I was in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago for the Melbourne Writers' Festival, the weather was stunning in Melbourne and it was terrible in Sydney. So, Sharon said we had Yelena Dokic visit our library the other night for an author talk. She spoke so well. What a remarkable woman. Sharon, I so agree. I think I read her biography and I was shocked. I was shocked at how we let that happen, how we let what happened to her happen. And do you know what else I was shocked about, Sharon, is that everyone knew that that was happening to her and nobody stopped it. Like journalists knew, other coaches knew, people knew. And yet that poor girl had to go home to abuse, physical abuse, almost every single night. Oh, anyway. But she's wonderful and she's come out the other end and she's super lovely and generous. And I think she's a sports reporter now, is she? Yeah, anyway, she's wonderful. Jenny is reading Daughter of Mine, a good mystery tale. Sandra, I love connecting with authors, especially if I've read their books. Todd Alexander is a favourite. Oh, there you go. That's nice to hear. Now, listen, Meg Keneally, the daughter of Tom Keneally, has written another book. It's called Free, and it follows a young woman on her trip to Australia in the early 1800s. It's based on a real person, and it brings colonial Australia to life with a masterful prose. Now, I mean, I guess it's not a surprise that Meg is a beautiful writer, just like her father. I don't know. I can't remember how many children Tom's got, but definitely Meg's writing, and I don't know if the others are. But this is her new book, gorgeous cover, and it's called Free. Okay, what else have we got? Oh, Anna Downs. I think we talked about this book last week. We love Anna. She's actually lives up in the Central Coast somewhere. This was our book of the week. I think it was last week. And it's a nerve-shredding outback thriller set in Western Australia. It's rural, it's small town, and there's a murder. And a very different cover for her as well, for Anna. And it's called Red River Road. Let me know if you've read it. Okay, what else we got? Janine says, hi, Cheryl. Just reading Dark Deeds Down Under, which is a compilation of short crime thriller stories from Australia and New Zealand authors. Thank you for sharing that. Bryce Courtney. Oh, we love you. Now I know that you're running Bryce's account, and it's called Independent People is what you're reading by Haldor Laxness. It's an Icelandic writer. Oh, thank you. Joy Bell, The Moon Gate by Amanda Geard, and it's a great read, and it's what Joy Bell's reading. Faye says, hi, I'm reading Water by John Boyne, first novella in the Element series. I like and hearing from authors because it adds another dimension to the book. But living in a regional area, the opportunity to do this is not very often. Well, that's why you have to do it through us, Faye. I know. I mean, it's very often very hard, and it's like, budgets are tight, and a lot of publishers can't get to regional and rural areas. They do try. When I worked in a publishing house, it was often a conversation of how we get authors to rural and regional Australia. But sometimes it can be quite difficult, and sometimes the author doesn't have the time. But that's where Facebook comes in. Facebook Live, Facebook videos, Instagram. I mean, this is the connection we have. And, like even Victoria last night, I mean, great conversation. You guys were at home, but she jumped right on and answered the questions that we didn't get to cover in the conversation. So it's not seeing them in person, but it's pretty close, isn't it? Thanks for sharing that, Faye. Rita, I read this recently too and couldn't put it down. I've missed what that was. Joy Bell, met Sally Hepworth and Rachel Johns and loved them both, and they started my better reading journey. Oh, wow, that's fantastic, Joy Bell. Thanks for sharing that. Gail met Belinda Alexandra, was a real treat as I'm a big fan and we both love cats. She definitely loves cats. Her Instagram is just full of cats. And we love Belinda. She's such a great friend to Better Reading. I think she was one of the first people many, many years ago that came in and did a Facebook Live with us. That was a long time ago. Anyway, Kaz is about to start Private Monaco by James Patterson and Adam Hamdi. Julie, Cheryl, can I say I love that too on you? Oh, this top? Thank you. I do like it's got a little bit of a zippy thing. Okay, Harlan Coben, Think Twice. Master storyteller, one of the best crime writers, and this his new book. It's absolutely unputdownable. It's called Think Twice. I remember, and it wasn't this book, but there was a couple of years back now, I was taking a long haul flight and I was reading a Harlan Coben, and I might have been a slower reader back then because I think it was like from here to Singapore or something. So I can't remember how many hours that is, but maybe it's 7, maybe it's 10, I can't remember. But I remember almost landing and not having finished and just like desperately trying to finish the book before we landed. But, you do have that with books, don't you? Sometimes you remember the moment that you were reading the book and where you were sitting and what you were doing. Anyway, that was me and Harlan back then. This is his new book and it's called Think Twice. Okay, how am I going for time? I'm good. All right. What do we got? I like Julie making a comment on my top. Christine, I love having the opportunity to meet authors and listening to them explain the process of writing books. I have met Dervla McTiernan, Kylie Orr, and Matthew Ryan Davis. That is really interesting to me as well. And if you listen to our podcast, they're really often the conversation is about how the authors came to writing. So if you like to hear them, listen to the podcast. But do you know, and I've said this before, I've recorded on the podcast over 400. I think I've spoken to over 400 authors since we launched about, 5 years ago. And do you know, I never hear the same story twice. I always learn something. It is always interesting. And do you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm so tired today. I don't know if I can talk to so-and-so. And then I start the conversation and 99.9% of the time, I am totally engrossed because they're storytellers. That's what they do. And so when I ask them their story about how they came to write, it's often very, very interesting. So that's Stories Behind the Story. That's our podcast. And of course, when you see an author, you can always ask them those questions as well. But anyway, that was from Christine. Carolyn, I really enjoyed meeting and seeing authors at the Sydney Writers' Festival. I think it gives you an idea of them as a person, and that enriches the reading of their books. Yeah, it does. Meredith says, hi, I'm reading All You Have to Do Is Call by Kerry Ma. Kylie, great event with Victoria last night. Thanks, Kylie. It was so much fun. Yvonne says she met Victoria a few years ago at the local library and they had author talks there, and that's Richmond Tweed Regional Libraries. I mean, I think libraries are great in terms of author events. And I think they're always putting their hands up for it. So if an author is available to go to that region, very often the library will host it, which is fantastic. I mean, you know, who doesn't love a public library? Okay, all right. Amor Towels, Table for Two. I love this cover so much. It's 6 short stories based in New York, and it's got a New York feel, hasn't it? And there's also a novella in there as well. It's the golden age of Hollywood, and it's written with humor and sophistication. I know that many of you like Amor, and this is his new book, and I am a particular fan of short stories, so enjoying this very much. Okay, so that's that. I think I've nearly covered everything. I'm going to go through a few more comments. Tanya is reading A Shadow at the Door by Jo Dixon. Gail, has anyone seen Charlotte Salter? Excellent read. Charmaine, Studio Girls by Lisa Island. We love Lisa Island. I think we talked about that last week. Kaz is reading, just finished something. Oh, Margaret Hickey. Oh my God, Margaret, can I just tell you this? I don't know how this happened. I hope you're still there, right? So we're having a conversation about this particular promotion that we're going to do in the office. Natalie and I, Dex and Lily, and we're sitting around, we're having a conversation, and Natalie says, why don't we talk to Margaret Hickey? I said, all right, where does Margaret live? So we looked up where Margaret lives, and then half an hour later, Margaret likes an Instagram post of mine, half an hour later, and now Margaret is on. She's here listening. And she's here listening. So I don't know. I mean, okay, they say that, you know, your phones hear everything, but did my phone hear something and let Margaret know to contact me? I don't think so. So I don't know how that happened. And I know you've joined us before, but you don't join us every week. But anyway, Margaret Hickey has just finished Wifedom. I can't explain what just happened. Really, I can't. We were talking about you today, Margaret, and here you are. She said she promises she's not stalking. Okay, all right, but you can stalk me. I don't mind. Wifedom, Margaret's saying she loved it, and I know that oh gosh, who's the author of Wifedom? I know her, Anna Funder. She's at the Writers' Festival, so talking about Wifedom. Bev says, hi, Cheryl. I'm reading Milking Time and listening to the Studio Girls. So Milking Time's Rachel Treasure. And I spoke to her last week, actually. We recorded a podcast. She's in Tasmania. And I have so much fun talking to her. I love her. What else we got? Margaret Hickey. Hi, Margaret. I love your book. So Julie is talking to Margaret. Okay. All right. Well, we're almost out of time. Margaret says, love you, Julie. She's delightful. Okay. Kylie, if you're in Adelaide, Heather Morris will be at the Salisbury Library this Saturday. Great. Thank you for letting us know, Kylie. That's great. Joe Bell says, wow, 400 authors. Yes, definitely. The ones I've watched have all been amazing. Thank you. And also their podcasts. Actually, what we'll do is we'll get Dex to put the podcast link. And Faye says libraries are absolutely vital to the reading community. Absolutely. And by the way, she really enjoys Amor Towels. Margaret, I don't know how this happened. I know you're not stalking, but she's got, you know, clearly got a day off, and we were talking about you this morning, and now you've reached out to us. Whatever. Anyway, that's the world telling us something. Okay, this is it. We're out of time. Love this segment. Love everybody at home. Thank you so much for sharing what you share with us. And until next week. And very, very soon, we're going to tell you about a new promotion that we have coming. Take care. Bye.